Good evening, everyone. Hi. Thank you all for joining us tonight for the second lecture of this fall semester. Let me start by recognizing and acknowledging that we are on the lands of the Peoria, Kaskaskia, Piankasha, Wea, Miami, Mascoutin, Odawa, Sauk, Meskwaki, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Chickasaw nations. These lands were the traditional territory of these native nations prior to their forced removal. These lands continue to carry the stories of these nations and their struggles for survival and identity. As a land-grant institution, the University of Illinois has a particular responsibility to acknowledge the people of these lands, as well as the histories of dispossession that have allowed for the growth of this institution for the past 150 years. We are also obligated to reflect on and actively address these histories and the role that this university has played in shaping them. This acknowledgement and the centering of Native peoples is a start as we move forward for the next 150 years. In the face of today's social and environmental urgencies, under the title Critical Practice, this fall's School of Architecture's lecture series invites us to reflect on the evolving role of designers as critical agents in shaping equitable, resilient, and culturally grounded futures. Contributing practitioners and educators working across architecture, landscape, and urbanism activate design as a tool for critique, transformation, and care. Together, these voices sketch a field in motion, one that is actively reshaping what it means to practice today. With this in mind, it's my pleasure to turn the word to Andrea Melgarejo, former professor of our school, whose generosity once again brings us the voices of Paraguay's most accomplished architects and educators. This evening, she will introduce our guest lecturer, Javier Corvalán. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be back here, see some familiar faces, and I'm honored to introduce Javier Corvalán, who's visiting here to present his work at the Chicago Architectural Biennial, alongside with Jose Cubilla, another Paraguayan architect. So I have the privilege, me and my husband, we're collaborating on the fabrication of the installation for this year's edition, and it's a pleasure to share his presence with all of you today. Javier is an acclaimed Paraguayan architect whose practice explores structural innovations rooted in local materials. I had the privilege of experiencing many of his work, and soon you will get to see some of them. And you can immediately notice his gift for transforming simple elements into powerful architectural expressions. He often uses unconventional materials in inventive ways, creating striking projects that challenge architectural norms and expand our understanding of design. His work has received international recognition and has been published in leading architectural journals. He's a professor at the National University of Asunción, the Catholic University of Asunción, and also recently he was a visiting professor at the Istituto di Urbanistica e Arquitectura di Venezia, where he earned his PhD in architecture, city, and design. Among his many distinctions, he was awarded the Official Cross in 2006 by King Juan Carlos I of Spain for his work at the Centro Cultural de España Juan de Salazar, a remarkable project of intervention and restoration of architectural heritage. In 2018, he designed one of the chapels on the Venetian island of San Giorgio Maggiore for the Vatican's pavilion at the Venice Architectural Biennial, earning the Medaglia d'Argento del Pontificato. For me, this introduction is deeply personal. Javier was my professor and a very influential figure. The insights I gained from him mark my architectural journey and continue to shape how I think about design and fabrication today. Please join me in welcoming Javier Corvalán.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. So, okay. Well, the crisis of the imagination, but don't worry. The crisis of the imagination, it's when there are more questions than answers. This is why this was my PhD topic, and it is the time that I believe we are going through. Intelligence participates in the process of imagination. Then, how does the process of imagination relate to artificial intelligence? It's a complex topic. This is how I imagine it. The imagination of all our projects. And we will see some of them below. Many authors write that language is what makes an animal different from a human. I'm from Paraguay, and it's language that makes us different. We speak two languages, Spanish and Guarani. This is part of that crisis. It is an indigenous design. It is their worldview. They do see the forest. The name of this row is Occipite. Then the author is an Indian, that the name is Wilk. If we can say this sentence in Guarani, we can say Ibira Oyoko Ka'awu. This is our forest. A photograph taken by Guido Bojani, which represents the name of the country. Paraguay is the name of the country, and it means in Guarani, water that goes to the sea. He was a painter, draftsman, ethnologist, and for sure a photographer. And this is our forest right now. A beloved Spanish teacher once told me, build buildings as if they were trees. Trees are essential architecture. The base, the structure, and the covering. This is one of the house that we made thinking in a forest. This is a bridge, the house of the bridge of 20 meters on the stream, and was just to think about the forest. And the forest, the trees, for me, is the architecture. And the forest is the city. This is our city, Asunción, our forest. And this is an urban planning, an urban project for my city that we recently made. This is probably most of the projects and works that we did until now in around 25 or 30 years of profession. So, if you remember one of the first draw, this is the Occipite house. This is where I live and where our studio is, the Laboratorio de Arquitectura. This is in the center of the imagination. And all of the others are the projects that we are going to see now. Like I said, the tree, this is the structure of the house. A wall of 70 meters without a pillar. Well, this is another house. It's the Surubi house. Surubi is the name of the fish, a very typical fish for the Paraguay River. So this house was a house that we thought against how do we think the structure. Just thinking how just a simple beam can work. You see upstairs a classical beam, and what happened with the deformation of that. But if we take the support to the center, the beam starts to work better. Like this. This is a beam and a weight right on the center. And how it starts. And if the distance between the supports are not enough, we just can put a weight to get the perfect beam for that. And the weight is the wall that doesn't arrive to the floor, to the ground. This is the main entrance. So you can see here the bin. The support, 4 pillars, and the weight. And this is how it works. All the floor is hanging. Another work. We are going to see very quick, fast, very fast, some projects, and then we are going to stop in 2 of them. This is the Umbráculo house. And the problem was just to think how a vault can work. But with recycled material. And this is the technique. This was a very old house, a sort of heritage of the downtown of our city. So this is a space that we did on the second level to have a double for the weather and for the sun, just to build a shade. Filters, double roof. And this wall is black because the owner is a writer. So she can write inside on her wall. This is another one. This is the hammock house. It's an structure for assembling and a surplus of material with construction waste. We have many materials for that. And stones just to give weight for the roof. Very light roof. The doors are like a garage system. And the most important space in the house, always near the outdoor space. This is another work. It's a driving range for golf for the APG, that is Asociación Paraguaya de Golf. It's just a simple structure that the question is now how two beams can work to make 55, naturally, 55 meters of cantilever. Because at the side of the cantilever was a stream. This is my son. And this is the idea. And this is how we do variations to know the relation of support and two beams, how can it build different projects? And finally, all the structural calculation to have this. This is the 25 meters of cantilever. There you have the stream in the dark part, and the topograph, the ground goes down. So players can be here. Excuse me. You have one under the roof. Three spaces for the players. This is in a very particular landscape because there is a stream, but all the other surface is flat. It's flat because we have a part of the country is the Chaco that goes in this part of the other side of the river. So that was also the inspiration to do that structure. Like this. Okay, another one, the dark house. Dark house is a pinhole box. Was a house, or yes, was a house because now it was transformed. Was a house for a filmmaker, and how a filmmaker can live in her own chamber was the topic. So this is the very famous film of Paz Encina is the name of the filmmaker. She won a prize in Cannes. So this is the way that we explain her, because he came to us to ask for a house because we did the hammock house. So the film was, the movie was the La Hamaca Paraguaya. So we said that was that she is going to do many films, and the hammock house was not the right house for her. And so we think in another idea. So that was our presentation. We put the hammock, and the image, the projection of that in the landscape that she is going to have her house was inverted. Okay. And it was in this place. This is the plans. Had 2 levels, and works like this. When the weather and why is a pinhole box? Not just because she's a filmmaker. It's because he was studying in Berlin. So she is going to live in this house only 2 months a year for vacation. So nobody is going to take care of this house. So that was the problem. How to do a house that nobody is going to care, and also the budget was only $20,000. So this was the renders and the explanation of the idea. This is the house already built. She is Pasita. And this is how it works when the box is closed. You can see the outdoor image on the walls that is inverted. So the house is blind, but in some way it is transparent. But it's for a filmmaker, it's not for a lawyer. And this is how it works. And this is, I don't know. Okay, this is a video that is just don't like the video. It's a simple video that shows how the script is just how the box can be open and in real time. I don't know, because I don't see the triangle for play. It's all black. Okay. No. Really, it's not important. Oh. Well, if you want. What happened? Could you help me? This is. Oh. It's a little bit lazy. Okay. We are losing time. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. The Keshe house. Well, Keshe house means crooked house. Why crooked? There is the story behind this. As you know, Saint-Exupéry is the famous writer and pilot that did an invitation to Le Corbusier when Le Corbusier goes to Buenos Aires to fly in the first flight to Paraguay. For sure, Le Corbusier said yes because he loved airplanes and boats, ships, and they were friends. And these are the sketches of Le Corbusier when he flew to Paraguay. These are the rivers. And this is a hotel when Saint-Exupéry used to live in San Bernardino. It's a city, a little town near Asunción. And this was before he writes The Little Prince. And this is the snake that eats the elephant. And the legend, because it's impossible to prove, said that Saint-Exupéry used to see from his window of that hotel that hill. And that hill has the same shape that this. So we have to do a house that is the crooked house. And we have also this situation, but on the hill. This is the view. So, in our imagination, what this? To do like a submarine floating on the water, and like a periscope on that hill to see the hill, to see the snake. So these are the sections, the plans, and this is the house. This is under the swimming pool. That's why I said a submarine, because it's under the water. And you can go to the house. That is a periscope to see that view. But you see that here, this is a bin covered with wood. This is the entrance. But the others, in the other side, in the other facade, we had the same bin, but one is on the ground and the other is on the support. So this is why it is crooked. This is the interior space. So in that wall, you have a ramp to go upstairs. Here. This is the other bin, the other wall. There you have the swimming pool and the room that is under the swimming pool. And that is the periscope. So this is a famous picture of a German painter, Caspar David Friedrich, that look how the walker in the sea of clouds is stand. And to me, this is like the little prince. And to stand on the hill, you always have to stand with like a crooked position. The Cerrito Chapel is a chapel that started the story because the Pope go to Paraguay to give a mass in a very poor neighborhood. So he saw this chapel, and this is the neighborhood. It's very poor people. There are very little houses. This was the old chapel. And the challenge was how to do a bigger chapel, but not with a big volume. So how could be the structure that we can have in one structure, 2 volumes? And this is the Moebius tape that gave us the structure to have this. The form for this structure was garbage. That's why the garbage was printed on the wall, on the walls, so you can see difference. There were doors, woods, whatever we found was for the form of that. Was an auto construction? Can we say that? An auto construction experience. And all the structure is just how can we have a concrete, because in this neighborhood was a community of concrete workers. And they asked us to do in concrete. And how the situation is that is a very dangerous neighborhood. So most of the chapels are stolen. So this chapel is always open and don't have nothing, just so this is why the creator of the Venezia Biennale said that the Pope chose us to do this nomadic chapel for the Vatican Pavilion. And why is nomadic? Because the Pope or the Church wanted to, after the Biennale, to take the Church to another city that that had an earthquake when they, for example, they lose the chapel of the city. And Gunnar Asplund was the reference for all the participants. We were 10 architects. And this is the place that Asplund did the Chapel of the Forest. That is very known because it's a Nordic house with the Pantheon inside. Whoa. So, the idea, this is the place, Venezia, and this is the forest, a park, behind the San Giorgio Island, behind the Palladios Church. But these are the situation of the earthquake. And the most curious story is why they asked to a Paraguayan architect to do a project for earthquake, because we don't have any earthquake in Paraguay. So we start to research how can we do an earthquake structure. And this toy, I think everybody knows. And when Paulo Mendes went to Paraguay several times, I had the opportunity to ask him, because he's a master of structures, how can you think that this bird can work? He said, I don't have idea. I don't have any idea, but I just want to tell you this. We were in a bar in Asunción waiting friends, for example, Jose and other ones, Solano. And she said, I think this is the way that birds work. He took 2 forks, those sticks, how do you say? Okay. And that for the salt. I can tell you just this. Then try to find. Then we found this sculpture of Navarro Valdeberg. Only 1 point and a circle on it. And this is Venezia, is La Laguna di Venezia. And that is the most efficient support that you can have in Venice. The bricole are 3 sticks in the ground. So, if this chapel has to be a nomadic chapel, it has to travel. So, this on the bricole is going to be in Venice, in the lagoon, on a simple, a classical pillar on the flat ground, and on the hill, on the rock. And reminding Navarro Valdeberg and the beer, we did this for that chapel.
Remoto.
Dale.
Paco.
Dale, pues.
¿Quieren que ponga algo atrás?
Vamos a mover así la mesa.
No,
We
hacia
thought
adelante.
it could work for an earthquake. You see, this was the first model,
Ah,
have
bueno, eso
a
lo vamos a sacar.
roof. These were the calculations for the storm, the snow, the earthquake that an engineer did. And these are the final project. Was all have to be built with wood. And this was Marcello Mastroianni explaining the Pope how it's going to be the project for the Vatican Chapel. This is the model that we used to do in the lab, in the laboratory, in the studio. It's a model that have 70 kilos that works exactly that the structure is going to work. The real chapel is going to have 20 tons in the back to have all the volume on the earth. And this is the plan of our chapel, reminding the Asplund project, that is the circular space in the interior, that is the Pantheon, that we gave, yes, outside. But all the chapels had an mecena, I don't know how to say that, mecena sponsor, and a sponsor. The stone one that did Soto de Moura was a cave, and the other one, but they didn't found any sponsors that can do the wood structure, because the Vatican can spend money for a festival of architecture. So they search for sponsors to do all the chapels, and this was a frustration, because the only way that they found how to do was with the metal structure. So we just give the wood for like a skin for the project. There you have San Marco and the cross. The cross is in that way because the cross in the interior of San Marco is also like that, a three-dimensional cross. Can you see the tripod? Yes, tripod. That is like a bricole. So for us, the best idea was to leave the structure, not to do a fake structure to cover all with wood. And this is the final. Finally, from the beginning, can see the forest for the trees is now possible. We have the tree, that is the chapel, the essential structure. We didn't have the roof to see the forest. Thank you very much. Okay.
Anyone in the audience has a question? questions? Okay, coming.
Leti, ¿qué me va a preguntar? Por ahí no entiendo.
Okay. I just wanted to know about the stones that were hung from the ceiling to give it that curve.
Oh, the hammock house.
Yeah, in the hammock house. Yeah, I wanted to know what the street, was there like some safety precautions you had to take for the string, and I was curious about it.
Well, the problem was how could we do a very, this one? How could we do the cheapest roof? You see, that is just one metal without, and just a net of iron varillas. Okay. So that was not enough for storms, for the wind. So the engineers don't want to work with this projects because they don't have the, how can I say it? No, certification of this. Okay? So they just say to us, just give a quantity of kilos that is going to be necessary not to have this in a risk situation. So we give 70 kilos. We add 70 kilos with the stones in each square meter to have the stability of the shape in that case. And that is all. You see in the interior, indoor, you have an isolation, just a skin of wood and a material to have an isolation for the hot weather, but outside is just the metal, because the wind can cross the space. Okay.
Thank you very much for your talk. It's super inspiring work. I wonder, how has your relationship to form changed over your career? I notice you're always kind of relating to physics and kind of magic tricks that can happen when we think about the relationship of engineer and designer. But there's obviously some of your hand as of designer deciding where to put material, where not to. And I just wonder, has that evolved over the course of the decades that you've worked? Yeah.
Well, there is a break point between the first period that was, I was very focused on structures and balance and everything, because I have a carpentry. So I have materials to do my models. I didn't went to buy material for models. So I used to do my projects in the classical way, sketches and, model of with papers and light wood. But I have enough material that I was wondering how can I use that for models. But I went into trouble because I couldn't stock one piece because it was very heavy for a model. So I start to find a balance between the elements, like this, no? And then I start to think in the process in a different way. Always bringing piece of woods and start to find a balance. That was my first period. And always thinking in material, metal, bricks, concrete. But then, when the filmmaker came to ask us for the house, this is also the same thing, no? Always playing with pieces of wood. But then the filmmaker came, and we keep one part of our system, our process. That's why we do models like this. That is in a structural and a balance. How can a box can open and close with the easiest way? But then, with this work, we found that the material was not important in the project. The light was the important part of the project, because the light was that really give the idea. So after this, we started to work with others more conceptual projects. And this is our last project, for example, is a roof that we call the manta. But the idea was that always not focus on the material, always to watch the context. To have the context, the landscape is the most important, or the city, than the architecture. That's why I said the tree and the forest. I think it's most important to see the forest, and we only want to just to see the architecture, very focused on architecture. And I think it is important, but not losing the forest, not losing the city.
My question was a little bit, or my comment was a little bit in this direction, because you always started, or at the beginning, with the structure, right? But to challenge stability and to give these dynamic forms, but also, I guess, or that's my take, to get this dissolution of the boundaries, right? To dissolve the boundaries of the architecture to become part of the landscape as well, right?
Yes.
No, it's a beautiful, a beautiful lesson. Thank you. And we have the last question here.
I had a doubt. It's not really a doubt, it's observation. Every architect has his own way of approaching a design, and one doesn't suit another. But I have seen in your designing process that you start with rough sketches of the slabs and the beams, and you look at how they are interacting with each other, the movement diagram that you made. And also I saw that your designs are very terrain specific. So every project that you showed has, the topography is very different with each other, but also you tried connecting the form that the beam diagram that you made and the terrain, and also you kind of have a story for each project. So how do you find the middle ground for all three of them? So there seems to be like a story for each of them, but there's also a middle ground where all three of them are connecting.
That's too long. Can you translate me?
Wow. Sure. Between the different, so the tools, but also the inspiration that you get for your projects. That no, there seem to be like three main topics, which is the topography of the place, the beam diagram, or these starting points that you have, no, for getting the inspiration, and the topography, the beam diagram.
There also seems to be a story.
And then the storytelling, or
Well,
the concept. How do you get these three together?
How do you think of this in the first place, and how do you try to connect all three?
well, that is very complex, but it's a very interesting question. When I write my PhD, that's why I call this lecture the crisis of the imagination, is because I think that the main, there are two elements or disciplines very important in architecture. One is history and the other geography. Geography is topography, and you can't have a history without geography. And if we have geography without history, probably there were no geography, because if some geography exists, it's because there is a history of someone that went there or had discovered that. So geography is topography, and history, or the story that after time comes the history. I think that a project must tell always the story, and a story, not just a shape or just the material. That is, and I think that we, the architects, what we think, what is imagination is to build geography. So that is why Paulo Mendes said when he went to Venice, that Venice, the important idea of Venice is not the Piazza San Marco or Palazzo Ducale or, I don't know, Ponte del Rialto. The important idea of Venice is that they have an artificial island. That island was made not in a natural situation. That island made the human, the people. So they build the geography. And the important part, the most important idea of Venice is the geography, not the buildings. That's why I said the important thing is the forest, not the trees.